But thank you all for having me back. If you look at the picture up on the screen, you may be wondering what all the hubbub is all about. This photo was taken 25 years ago. 18-month-old baby Jessica had fallen down a well and was stuck there for 2.5 days. She fell 22 feet and wedged down to an 8-inch diameter where she was lodged. Hundreds of workers worked around the clock for 58 hours, costing multi-hundreds of thousands of dollars to save one little baby girl. Now, as important as it is to save a life, it pales in comparison to saving a soul. The benefit of saving a life may last for years, but unfortunately that person will still one day die. However, when you save a soul, it goes on throughout eternity. Now, our mission, according to the Bible, is to search out those who are lost and rescue them. Now, how do we do this? Well, Jesus answers this question in Matthew 4:19. I'm going to let you know this is an hour-long message I'm getting ready to give you in 10 minutes. All right? Jesus in Matthew 4:19 says, "Come, follow me," Jesus said, "and I will send you out to fish for people." Now, it's very important for us to remember who Jesus is talking to when we put ourselves in the story to understand the Bible. Jesus is talking primarily to fishermen. Now, when we think of fishermen here and today and in our country, we usually think of that thing we do the last week of July. We're in a shady spot of the lake. We've got a cooler with cold drinks and snacks in our chair, and it's just a very relaxing, so peaceful time. Well, that was the farthest thing from these men's mind. These men heard Jesus say this, and they probably pictured something more like this. This is a picture from The Deadliest Catch. So my suggestion about fishing that I want to leave with you today is don't make fishing your goal. Make catching fish your goal. You see, as fishermen, it's not their hobby. It's what they were. It's their livelihood. If they didn't have success one day, they had to work all the harder the next day to make up for it. Because their goal, again, was never just to catch fish. Their goal was, or to go fishing, their goal was always just to catch fish. And there's a huge difference. No fish to them meant no money for food, no money for clothing, no money for a place to live. Failure was not an option. If our goal is to actually catch fish, then we will adapt, we will learn, we will practice, and we will do whatever it takes to improve the outcome of our fishing. I want to share with you what happened with me that's mentioned in this book that Mark just mentioned just over 6 years ago. I'd like to tell you about a former detective that I worked with Fairfax. I worked with Fairfax County Police for 27 years, and I worked with Vicky Armel. Now, Vicky and I met in May of 2003 when the Sully District Station opened up brand new in Chantilly area of Fairfax. And we worked a lot together. We became friends, but we also learned we were very different. I was a Christian, graduate from Washington Bible College, a member of McLean Bible Church. Vicky, on the other hand, was agnostic. She equated belief in God to belief in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny. So one day we had to go on an investigation to Maryland. And out of the clear blue, with no warning, Vicky says, "You've got all day to prove to me God exists." And I had the whole day to talk to her. Now, you'll get to hear a little bit more about that conversation in just a little bit. But I'll let you know, Vicky went to church for the first time Easter Sunday in 2004. A couple months later, she did become a Christian. And I was fortunate enough to witness her baptism in June of 2004. I got to witness her publicly dedicating her life to a God that she once swore didn't exist. Now, on May 8th, 2006, which was almost 2 years after giving her life to God, Vicky and I, and along with other officers and detectives, were at the Sully Station when a report of carjackings came out in the Centerville area over the radio. Vicky walked by my office, and I was going to be following her out the door in just a few seconds. But that 15-second delay kept me inside and put Vicky on the outside, along with Officer Mike Garbarino. We called him Gabby, was his nickname. We were on the verge of going out to look for the carjacker, but we had no idea that the carjacker was in our back parking lot looking for us. 18-year-old Michael Kennedy, who was armed with 2 rifles and 5 handguns, immediately began to fire at Gabby, who was struck 5 times with rifle shots. Now, in all the confusion, I didn't even know Vicky was outside at this point. Kennedy's first shot at Vicky struck her in the center of her chest, penetrating her bulletproof vest. Vicky was able to return gunfire even though she was seconds away from entering eternity. Vicky met the living God just a few feet away from where she asked me to prove that he exists. Both Mike Garbarino and Vicky were absolute heroes, and they died protecting the officers at our station. Now, the shooting took place at Sully Station, occurred at the beginning of Police Week, which brings thousands of police officers from all over the country and even all over the world. And because of this, over 5,000 of my brothers and sisters and law enforcement attended Vicky's funeral at the Tyson's campus at McLean Bible. But something happened at that service which took the mourners by complete surprise, including myself. Because on Easter Sunday, 2005, which was a year after Vicky gave her life to Christ, Vicky stood before her church on Easter Sunday and explained how she became a Christian in front of hundreds of people. The testimony was tape recorded and it was played at her funeral. The impact was powerful and lives were changed because of it. I would like for you now to hear my former partner in her own words explaining how she embraced the living Savior.
My name is Vicky Armel, and if you told me last year that I'd be standing in front of hundreds of people talking about Jesus Christ, I'd say you're crazy. Go to the insane asylum, because I don't even know Jesus. I don't know who he is. I can't do this. But a couple of things changed in my life, and now I feel comfortable enough that I can stand up here and talk to you guys about Jesus. I am a police officer. I know I don't look like one, but I am a police officer. I've worked for Fairfax County for a total of 16 years. Throughout my career, I've worked with a lot of Christians, and a lot of them have attempted to teach me about Jesus, and I always had the same reply to them. And the first one was always to give them the hand, back up, I don't want to hear it. And the other one was to tell them, listen, I have gone to these homicides and these suicides, and never once did that dead person get up in 3 days. I could not even entertain the idea of the resurrection of Jesus. The most persistent person, Christian friend of mine, was a guy named Mike Motafches. I call him Mo. He never gave up on me. He kept for an entire year. He would come up to me and he goes, Vicky, can I tell you about Jesus? I'd say no. And can I tell you about Jesus? No. It got to the point where I saw Mo and I'd say no. And I'd turn around and walk away real fast. And then one day we had to go to Maryland. So we were going to be in a car together for 5 hours. I don't know why, but I said, listen, I'm going to tell you what, Mo. I said, we're going to be together for 5 hours. This is your time. You can talk to me about Jesus all you want. Under one circumstance, when we get back to Virginia, I don't want you to talk to me about Jesus anymore. And he said, okay, that's a deal. So we got in the car and we drove to Maryland, and Mo talked about Jesus. And then we got to Maryland and we had to do a little stakeout because our guy wasn't home, and Mo was talking about Jesus. And then we turned around and started coming back to Virginia, and don't you know, I was talking about Jesus at this point. And we ended our day that day at McLean Bible Church. And it really hit me. It was the first time I'd ever walked into a church with actually the desire to learn, to know Jesus. And so I knew that I wanted to start coming to church. A friend of mine, Tim Perkins, told me about Mount View, and we decided to come. Last year was the first time I'd ever walked into a church seeking God. For those of you who were here last Easter, you're going to remember Mark gave us a case for Easter. That was our gift last year. I sat down, I started looking at this book, and it was pretty interesting to me. So I read it, and I was like, wow, this is like so cool, because you know what, there was a person named Jesus, and he did die, and he was put in a tomb, and he was resurrected after 3 days. Everything that I needed to prove the case of Jesus, I found in this book. A feeling just came over me like, wow. Since then, I've dedicated my life to Christ. I was baptized in June. But the reason that I decided that I would come up here today is because I know that there's probably a Vicky or a Victor out there who is searching for God. And I hope that my story might help you find God. And then I also want to encourage the mature Christians out here, don't give up on your friends. Be there for them. Just always talk about Jesus.
Well, Vicky's pastor contacted Lee Strobel, and he told him about Vicky's story and how one of his books, The Case for Easter, was used in her life. Mr. Strobel sent 6,000 copies of this excellent book, which was passed out at her funeral. Almost the entire Fairfax County Police Department and thousands of officers heard the gospel clearly that day and received a copy of this book. The Christian Broadcasting Network heard about Vicky's testimony, and they aired a story about her on the 700 Club. Someone who heard her story here at McLean Bible Church a few years ago spearheaded the American Tract Society, writing a tract about her testimony, which there are copies in the lobby if any of you are interested. He also started a website called honoringvickyarmel.com. At this site, you can hear Vicky's testimony, which you just heard, a message from Lee Strobel to Vicky's church, and more details about that day and about Vicky's life from me on that website. In Lee Strobel's book, The Unexpected Adventure, he devotes a chapter to Vicky's story. And it's amazing to me that all of this came about through a private conversation beginning with a simple question: can you prove that God exists? Now, all this was indeed an unexpected adventure, and the adventure continues. So I encourage each of you to take Christianity 301, which is where you learn how to share your faith, learn how to answer the critics, read books, study, and one of the best ways to learn is by practicing to fish for people. We have a search and rescue mission ahead of us. Let us all get out there and work the fields of souls. Thank you.